Welcome to the Holy Rebellion. Great. Well, Ben, welcome to the Holy Rebellion. It's good for us to be here. I'm glad you're spending some time with us today.
Hey, man, happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'll let you introduce yourself in just a second. Just kind of want a quick sampling of who you are. But my introduction of Ben, we met strangling each other probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And then we just kind of beat each other up over the years, and now we're good friends. So
Yeah,
that's Ben.
yeah,
So
that's it.
Ben,
What more
lay
do
it
I
on
need to
us.
say? I don't know
Is
what else
that
to
it?
say. That's that's my claim to fame. No, I grew up in Arizona and I've lived in Utah for half my life now. But my main profession is I'm a religious educator. I teach institute, and I'm also an actor and television host. I do lifestyle entertainment world. But most importantly, man, I'm a husband, I'm a father, been married for 23 years. Got 4 kids. Yeah, so I like you. I love being physically active. I'm super into sports of all kinds. From jujitsu to mountain biking to I love to lift weights as well. But yeah, I'm just a normal dude who loves life and loves Jesus.
Those are all great things. The story I always tell about Ben, and I don't know if you can tell from the video, but he is very physically fit and he's a formidable guy. But my favorite story, and I've told you this before, Ben, but it was like a couple of years ago, we were just rolling around doing some jujitsu, and then you just went and held your finger up and your pinky at like the second knuckles at a 45-degree angle, which to me was horrifying. I was horrified. That is not a normal thing. And you're like, pull it. And I said, no way, I'm not touching that thing. And you're like, pull it, please. And so I reached out and I grabbed it and I yanked and you yanked at the same time and it just popped back into place and you were fine. But I was
We
like,
just
I'm
kept going.
mentally scarred from that still.
Yeah, well, I don't even think we stopped. We just kind of paused where we were, popped back
Yeah.
into place, and we just kept rolling.
Yeah. Well, you kept going, but in the back of my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that was gnarly. I guess it's just a normal occurrence in your life.
Yeah, I've had so many injuries that's a minor one. It's like, oh, and I did the same thing. I broke my nose and rolled too. And I just, same thing, grabbed it, just yanked it back into place and kept going.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Does it
fun
just like,
stuff.
that's how it works. You just kind of put it back and it's fine.
Well, yeah, and it's probably the vanity in me. I was I'm so worried about messing up my face because I'm in front of the camera so often
It's your
that
moneymaker.
I panicked, right? I was like, I gotta fix this. And so I just grabbed it, I just pulled, and I could hear it just kind of crunch back into place. And I was like, I was rolling with Steve, and I was like, okay, am I good? He's like, you look good.
Steve, Steve busted up your nose.
It was a total accident. I mean, he claims it was, but yeah, it caught me with the heel and just,
He was a
yeah, it
little
felt
angry.
good.
He was a little
Yeah,
angry that day.
yeah, that's
I'll
right.
give him some tomorrow. Make him
Good.
pay
Yes,
for it.
please do. Please do.
Yeah. So Ben, kind of the lens through which we kind of look at things through this podcast, and you'd be a bit familiar with this, but we like to look at it from the lens of worship. And that would be like Jacob's ladder, or the way I like to think of it is it's this altar we build and we stack these principles and philosophies and basically in religion, we stack these stones to build an altar. And that altar, the altar of our lives, points us towards whatever God we decide to worship, whether that's intentional or not. And so it's like the actions that the direction of our life is the way I like to think of it. And so with that very brief, muddled introduction to it, what would you say your life points at? What is the God that you worship?
Uh, he's good. He's kind. He's patient. So of course I'm a Christian, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's taken me a long time to. I think my viewpoint of him has evolved over years and through experience and through overcoming trials and through witnessing major blessings and miracles in my life. It's really allowed me to view him as somebody who loves us and who wants us to succeed. I think the biggest thing that has helped me understand who he is becoming a father myself. And I see the way that I see my kids, I can't help but view him in that same manner. I'm kind of a softie as a dad. I really do want my kids to do well, and if they put forth the effort, I'm just waiting to give them blessings. But at the same time, I have to hold that line, and I have to really be firm on, setting boundaries. But if you stay within those boundaries, sky's the limit. I guess my bank account is the limit when it comes to my kids.
The
But I
sky, which
really,
is
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
But I really do want to bless my kids. And so from a standpoint of Heavenly Father, I think it's helped me see if me and my mortal existence, my mortal flaws, can have such tenderness towards another human being, my children. How much more is all powerful? His ability to love surpasses anything we could imagine. How much more is he willing to bless my life if I just stay on the path that he has set forth?
I love that. I was actually I was reading in Third Nephi this morning, and I actually had that exact same thought today. And let me just read to you this bit because it seems to
Okay,
really
tell me
outline what you're saying.
what chapter were you in this morning? Because that's where
Yeah,
I'm
you
at.
probably know you know this. It's Third Nephi 9. So this is like
Okay,
after they got
all that
torn to
is,
pieces.
yeah,
They're in the darkness, and then they hear the voice, and it's the voice of Jesus. And this part is so tender to me because it makes me feel like a father. This is how I would look at my children. And he says, "Will you not now return unto me and repent of your sins and be converted, that I may heal you? And if you come unto me, you shall have eternal life. And behold, my arm of mercy is extended towards you, and whosoever will come, him will I receive. And blessed are those who come unto me." And it's like he's always inviting. He's like, please just come unto me because your life is going to be so much better and I can heal you. And as a father, I think the same thing was like, please just make your bed because it seems so
that's right.
small right now, but it's going to bless you for the rest of your life. Like, please just do these things.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's a beautiful statement. Thank you.
Yeah, my son, he likes to play video games, but because of that, of course, there are strict rules, and he broke one of the rules. Like Monday through Thursday, nothing, no video games at
Yeah.
all. And then Friday, Saturday, they have a specific amount of time, and he just broke that after a couple warnings of trying to sneak in and squeeze in
Yeah.
a round of Fortnite, on a weekday. And so, anyways, I had to hold the line this weekend. I was like, "Sorry, buddy, there's no video games this whole weekend." And he was huffing and puffing, but I was like, "Hey, remember, we agreed to this, right? We had this
Yeah.
conversation." And he's like, "Okay," So yeah, I think that he really is. I want to be nice and I want to be generous, but at the same time, I have to stick to those standards, knowing that it's what is best for him.
And so he probably doesn't see it yet. The kid just like if he's not saving the world, who's gonna do it, right? He's
That's
got to
right.
do it, right?
I do it.
But from a parent's perspective, what benefit do you think? Like, why do you set that rule for your kid?
Well, because I know, it will affect not only his schoolwork, but we've noticed that it affects their attitude. The more they play video games, they're a little more grouchy, they're a little more
Yeah,
disobedient. And we like to have balance in life. It's like, get up, go do something, go play. And so a lot of it is just teaching them principles of discipline, which has been a huge, huge part of my life is that the idea of self mastery. Because if you can be disciplined in one thing, then you can be disciplined in another thing and another thing and another thing, right? And so it's just that principle of are you disciplined enough to say, I could play for another hour, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go do this. And you see the carryover into your spiritual life, your work life, just being able to control your wants and your desires, knowing that look, I can't play video games for 4 or 5 hours a day. I've got to go do something a little more productive. That it's just to kind of help them be a little more well rounded and not turn into some zombie staring at a screen all
yeah.
day.
Speaking of discipline, you and I have talked about this before, but you mentioned to me that like for years you got up at what was it, 5 a.m.,
For
something like
yeah,
that. It was
4:30 every day.
4:30 every day. How long did you do that for?
I did it for probably 8 years when my kids were young.
My goodness.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I kid you not, man, I never miss a day. I never missed a day. It was that
You're up
important to
till
me.
midnight. You still get up at 4:30.
Doesn't matter. Absolutely 100%. There were days I remember walking into the gym, and there were days where because the gym opens at 5, some of it at 4, but I'd be walking in at 5 o'clock, having gotten 2 hours of sleep because I was bound and determined. And I know that some people are going to argue and be like, "Oh, it's bad for your body. You
You
need
got to
rest."
have
I
the
know.
sleep. Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
But it wasn't necessarily like I wasn't doing this like there was a method. It was so much of it was mental in addition to the physical side of it. Like I needed that. I needed that escape from life and from having young kids and working full time and doing everything that you're involved in for my own mental health. I just needed that escape to say, okay, the next hour and a half, nobody needs me right now. My kids are asleep, everybody at work, they don't need me. No one's calling me this early. And I could just like get lost in something that I loved. And I find a huge connection between the physical body and your spirit, and how that just all benefits your overall health of your soul. And that's what I really tried to do. And I knew that was the only time I could do it. And so I was like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I've got to get up early. And it was awesome. It was a really, really good practice on being disciplined.
I'm still so impressed by that because so I get up at 5:30 every day unless I go to bed late. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna sleep in because I'm gonna be so grouchy. So I know I should get up anyways, but I'm just a weenie. So I gotta channel my inner Ben. I gotta be better
Hey,
at
listen,
that.
man, for anybody watching or listening, dude, like this dude is a killer you're listening to right now. Like, don't be fooled. You get this dude on a mat, he is a killer.
And also open invitation, whoever wants to. Ben and I will roll with you anytime.
Yeah,
Not that we're very good, but we just like to have fun and try not to get choked out. It's a blast.
there you go.
So I'm curious as to the specific moments that kind of led you to where you are. So like in your journey to your faith to where it is right now, what were some pivotal moments to get you there?
That's a good question, man. So I was born into the church, but my parents were converts, and I grew up outside of Utah. And I tell people all the time that I really think that I was born with a testimony. And because when I was young, my life was not easy. My dad was really, really abusive to me, physically, emotionally, and so I feel like God was like, okay, I'm gonna bless you with a knowledge that I'm here, that I'm real, because you're gonna need it. And it really was. It was those moments of like my greatest fear in life as a kid was my dad. He was, just living across the hall from me, and I was really terrified. And I mean it, like when I say like regularly, I mean just physical abuse was really terrifying. And but I always felt like I was okay. I always felt like, okay, I just knew that God is there. I knew that I had people that loved me. I grew up with 8 siblings. We were really, really poor, which adds another element of things.
Yeah.
And then when I was 11 years old, my dad passed away. And and it was weird. It was hard to reconcile as a little kid who I was in total fear of my dad. I can think of legitimately 2 moments that were good with him. And I'm sure there were more, but as an 11-year-old, you kind of compartmentalize different things. And there were 2 like positive moments where I was like, oh, my dad actually likes me. And so I had to wrestle with this idea of my dad has passed away and I'm no longer in fear. And at the same time, my dad has passed away. Like, that's traumatizing for a kid because he's still my dad, and I still had this like there's a part of me that had this hero complex of my dad, watching him walk up to my school, to bring me lunch money. And he's just a massive, just
Yeah.
muscly, specimen, and all the kids looking. And I'm like, yeah, that's my dad right there. And
Yeah.
so I had to really wrestle with that idea of, how do I deal with this? And then to come to the realization that my life is better off without him. That was really, really hard. And so going through stuff like that, that was the beginning for sure of my testimony, knowing that I had this connection to a higher power. I knew for certain that this life wasn't the end. I had this hope that, yeah, I'm going to see him again someday, and our relationship is going to be awesome. When I get to finally see him, he's gonna be proud of me. Like, he's gonna be so happy to I don't know, like I just feel like I don't hold any bad feelings towards him. I legitimately look forward to it, and I just know from his perspective, it's gonna be a beautiful reunion. Like, he's gonna want to apologize, and I'm gonna want to dismiss it and be like, just give me a hug, Like, and that's something that is legitimate, that I genuinely feel and live by, that there is a life after this one, and that's just the surface level, right?
Yeah.
Of things in my life that have led me to believe that, look, I'm all in on this thing and I'm not going anywhere. And it's kept me going through that experience and other experiences that I've had to overcome throughout my life.
I didn't know that about you. That's rough, Ben. How do you get over that? How
Dude,
do you do that?
it's no, you. That's a really good question. I think I was blessed with amazing siblings. My sisters are angelic. They really are. My mom is just a saint. My brothers, we just kind of rally together with each other. And I just kept moving forward. I never used it as an excuse of like, well, God doesn't exist because he let this thing happen to me. Well, bad things happen to people all over the place, and so I just kept moving forward and recognized the blessings that I received in my life. And of course, it's like I said, you just kind of build upon these things. And as I continually practice the religion and I continue to focus my attention on him and on the atonement, it just kept getting better and better and better. And I realized, like I say this all the time, but I feel so much like Peter when after Jesus feeds this massive multitude and they all scatter and they all leave. And he asked Peter, he's like, "Oh, so you guys going to leave too?" And Peter's like, "Where else are we going to go?" And that's my whole life is where else would I go that could bring me not only so much joy, but so much hope because life is full of trial and adversity, but it's the hope of knowing that, man, this is awful, but I'm still going to continue on because what's the alternative? Living a miserable
Yeah.
life. Like I'm so happy, content knowing what I know and having faith in what I don't know that keeps me moving forward.
I One of my favorite stories is The Lion King. I love The Lion King. I just like that one gets me right here every single
So
time.
the way there.
There's a scene that it's it's near the beginning. Mufasa takes Simba, and I think there's a lot of symbolism here, but he essentially takes him to a mountain, right? To the tip of a mountain,
Yeah.
Pride Rock. And so they're in a holy place. And Mufasa says to his son, look out there. Everything the light touches is our kingdom. And I just like, I love that so much because I think that's what Jesus did. Jesus said, hey
Yeah.
guys, here's the light. Here's where you should walk because if you walk here, you will be filled with light. And then we're always like, well, what about that dark spot over there?
Yeah.
And Mufasa says, we must never go there. And Jesus says, we don't go there, but we go there. We always go there. And I think the most beautiful piece about that is when we go there, we get chased by hyenas who are going to kill us, but Mufasa always shows up to come and save us. And like your life sounds just like that. You were in the darkness, but Mufasa showed up and saved you, and you've spent some time in the light. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And multiple time and time again, you just see that same pattern. And so it's evidence enough for me to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I have growing up, my parents split up and we would go with our dad sometimes, and our relationship was really rocky for a long time. And we went to his house and we were kind of scared of my dad and my little brothers who were littler than me. So we ended up being six boys, but three of us went to go his house for the summer. And there was a time when my brother he walked past something on a shelf and it fell and broke. It was glass. It might have been a bowl or a vase. I don't remember. And my dad heard it because we heard him like stand up in the other room and come over. And I just saw terror in my brother's eyes. Like his face went white and he's just like, oh no. And so my dad comes in and I looked at my brother and my dad's like, what happened? And I said, I broke this. I'm sorry. And I got in trouble and it sucked. And had to sit in timeout or something. But I remember I was sitting in timeout. I looked over at my brother and he just like had tears in his eyes. He came over late. He's like, thank you so much. And this
Wow.
response just came out of me. I didn't even think about this. But he said, thank you. And I said, that's what big brothers do. And I've thought about a
Wow.
lot about that recently. It's like, yeah, that is what big brothers do. That's what our big brother did. We all break the vase, but he's there to say, hey,
Dude, that's
I'll
awesome.
take this one. Yeah, I'll take one for the team here.
What a cool story, man.
Yeah, ever since this was like probably 20 years ago or close to it, maybe more. But
Wow.
I think about that
Wow.
regularly because it just hit me like a lightning bolt. So going back to the altar, this is fun for me to think about when I think of like how I build my altar that orients me to God, or like the principles, the bedrock of how I structure that. I often think of the guys who have taught me something that points me to God. Like, so for example, Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. I love
So
that.
awesome.
And so like that's a piece of stone in my altar that helps point me to God. Jordan Peterson, honesty, responsibility, shouldering as much as you can. Like that's a piece of it in there for me. But for you, Ben, what are what are those stones? What are some of the major stones in your altar that you would say point you to God?
So I love both those guys you mentioned. I think they're great. I love it. I'll add. one of the things as far as like the physical discipline side of things that's really helped me
Yeah.
is like I read like David Goggins, I read his stuff, and
He's
he's
an animal.
insane. He's an
Guy's
animal.
an
He's
animal.
crazy. But really, to be if I'm being like totally honest, it's the Book of Mormon for me. Like that's, and I know you say the same thing, of course, but like to bring it from like, the spiritual side. My stake president, when I was preparing for our mission, he challenged me. He's like, "You're going to read the Book of Mormon before I'll even touch your papers." And I was like, "Oh man!" So I had to finish it really, really fast.
Yeah.
That really has been the standard of my testimony is reading the Book of Mormon every day. I'm on a streak right now that has been amazing reading every single day. And it changes your life. I really do feel that it's the most correct book, man. And if you want to get closer to God, spend some time in it every day. And that's been a huge, huge blessing for me. And then I watch and I observe. I had a lot of really good friends in high school, and who had a lot of really good dads that I just looked at, and not all of them were members of our faith. It was really cool. One of my best friends, I named my son after him. He was kept from a very strong Catholic family. And I was watching on Facebook the other day, his mom and dad just celebrated their 50th anniversary together.
Holy cow.
And it was awesome because the amount of like sleepovers I had at their house and how many times they fed me, and they were just so good and so kind. And I remember watching them, and it was just so cool to see how like they got along so well. And it was always funny, like he would flirt with her and it make her really uncomfortable. It just like in a giggly,
Yeah.
uncomfortable way. And I was like, "That's cool,
Yeah.
man." Like I like to see their marriage, And
Yeah.
just yesterday, one of my best friends called me. His dad was actually the witness at my wedding, and we were just catching up, just chatting. And he said, "Hey, did you hear so and so is a bishop?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so there's probably about 15 or 16 of us that we all still stay in contact together. And of that group, we counted at least 7 bishops.
Dang.
And every one of them has been in a bishopric, at least. Every
Yeah.
one of us served missions. Every one of us got married in the temple and is still married to that same person. And this is outside of Utah, and just
Yeah.
I'm so proud of my Mesa roots, and to think that that's to grow up in an environment like that, and we were by far, far, far from perfect. I mean, the stories I could tell about the nonsense we got into is
Yeah. You guys were
ridiculous.
middle schoolers.
But
I know
that's
how
right.
middle school goes.
But we all got through. We all
Yeah.
knew enough to where we were able to get through some of those teenage years, those difficulties. And we repented and we stayed on the path, and we just have clung to that after all these years. It's been really amazing to see, how that has propelled each one of us to keep going and building, and creating our own families, and really like we're gathering Israel just by being in a good, solid home and raising kids that are now, getting married and being strong and continuing that covenant path.
Yeah. Round two. Man, what a blessing to have friends like that. That's incredible.
Amazing.
Dude, middle school for me was the armpit of life. It was so bad. This was like shortly after my parents got divorced. So like I went off the rails, and I made some terrible decisions, and nothing really serious, but I was headed down a path that would get serious
Okay.
shortly. And I dyed my hair black, and I had it long, and I parted it down the middle like Moses splitting the Red Sea. It,
Dude,
it looked
please tell me you
awful.
got pictures of this.
Unfortunately, yes. I hope that they never surface, but there are pictures. They're so bad. But what's beautiful about that is there's hope. There's even hope for that middle schooler Christian with dyed black hair spread down the middle. So bad. And my wife and I, next month, we'll celebrate 10 years, which is cool. Like it's
Rats, dude.
in my life, in my family, marriages don't last that long. From my experience, like I don't want to dive into it too much, but I've seen it not work a lot. And early in my life, there were very few experiences where I saw it work and work well. But just like you, I would have glimpses into people's marriages that were wonderful, and I would just see things they did. I was like, that's it. You can be
That's it.
happy. You can love each other. It's like you don't have to yell in your home. Small things like that. So what's so cool is that you've probably been that guy for hundreds of teenagers at this point. You had kids over at your house. I just think, what kind of an impact can you and those 15, like, you guys have probably had an incredible impact.
I hope so, man.
That's
I
fun to
really
think about.
do. Yeah, I hope that, my kids' friends, my wife and I, we were very intentional about always inviting our kids' friends to come over and just to be around a good,
Yeah.
healthy environment. We have a young man who lives across the street whose parents are divorced, and he's just like there. He has like we tell him like, dude, you can't, you need to stop knocking. You just walk in our house. Just come in like
He's
you're
family now.
so he's family now. Yeah, we've taken him on family vacations with us, and
Wow.
we've just been really trying to give him some sense of like, hey, just because your situation was not ideal, you can still have and create this for your future. And if we could have even just the smallest impact, and the fact that we love the kid and it's very natural, and that it helps, right? He's a good
Yeah.
kid.
He's not the
We
worst.
we want him. That's right. We actually want him around. It's not a chore, of charity
Yeah.
all the time. But knowing that we do, my wife and I do talk about that. Like, hey, this is a good environment for him to see. To set an example, even with all of our imperfections, it's still something that he doesn't get a chance to view. And so if we can provide that for him, then we hopefully lead to him creating his own family someday.
I love that. I want to be like you when I grow up, Ben. I think that's wonderful. That's so cool. We had a family party at our place yesterday. For whatever reason, we just like never decorate. We have nothing on the walls. So one of my cousins walked in. He's like, "This is the most vanilla house I've ever seen." I was like, "Thank you, I guess." But you know what's interesting? I had another cousin walk in, and so this side of the family, almost none of them are members. They're very colorful, very fun, like wonderful people. I love them to death. They're so much fun. But one of them is, well, he might watch this, so I I won't say who's but
All right.
he walked in my house and he just, like, started crying. I was like,
Wow,
"What's going on?" He's like, I'm happy for you, man." I was like, "Oh, thank you."
that's
And I
cool.
I don't know exactly what he was feeling, but I hope what he was feeling when he walked into my home is what my wife and I have tried to nurture here, that, like, this spirit of love, and, like, I want people to feel Jesus when they come into my house. That's what I
Totally.
want. And that may not have been it, but my pride is like, yeah, we did
Yeah.
it. We nailed it. So I you guys are doing it. I want a home like Ben. I
Oh,
think
you're
that's
so
cool.
nice, dude. You're awesome, man. Thanks.
So you already talked about this a little bit, but after your dad passed away, in your faith journey, did you experience challenges to your faith or any major low points?
If it was, man, as far as to my faith, I think I don't know if I ever really questioned it. There were moments where that got really hard after that. My mission was really, really tough. There are some experiences that I had that they never questioned my faith, but questioned my desire to continue. Like I always knew, but I think there's a difference between having a testimony and wanting to live it. And sometimes you're just like, is it even worth it? Is it even worth going through all this? Like I always knew, I would never question, does God exist? Is Jesus Christ the Son of God? Did
Yeah.
he, suffer and die for my sin? But I think there were times where it was like, is it really worth it? And can I actually do this? I
Yeah.
think
It's
the
like there's a price to
darkest,
pay.
right, right. I think the darkest of my life, and now like, when like I've been through, like my wife and I, we lost twins that only lived for a day. We devastated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going through the death of my father, my best friend died by suicide. Looking at things that you have to overcome in life. The darkest came for me when it was I went through a mental health crisis, like total. I don't know if I want to call it mental breakdown because that sounds awful, but I really all the trauma and the things that I went through as a child, through the abuse and through loss, through death and rejection, it just kind of I just pushed it underneath the rug until my early 40s, and it just exploded, man. I started having major panic attacks and anxiety and I don't know if anybody out there has experienced this. You get it, you understand. It's hard to really understand until you go through it. And like even reading my scriptures was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't want it to do with anything spiritual. It was I was so removed from that. I stopped praying, I stopped reading, but I would, when I say I stopped saying full more prayers, but I would, it's more like yelling. I would yell at God all the time, and I didn't know why. I was just mad and angry, and it was more like I was yelling at Him to make what was going on in my head make it stop. And this lasted for a solid year of trying to figure out what was going on, and then there was another year of allowing myself mentally, physically to heal from it. And it was weird for me to, and I was teaching seminary at the time, and so it was really hard. I felt like I was a fraud, like I'm preaching all this stuff, but I just, you just feel that gap, that distance. And it's like I couldn't control my emotions at all. I would be extreme highs, extreme lows. I was at the gym nonstop because that was like how I could just get my anger out, is by
Yeah.
just listening to loud, crazy music. And I really had to get mad. I was angry all the time. And then luckily my wife is an absolute angel sent from heaven, rescued me, pulled me out, was super, super patient with me, got me the help that I needed. Like I went through therapy, I went through medication, and just like had to rewire my brain and to finally like see the light. And I knew the whole time that it wasn't my fault. And I think that was a big part of it, was this was being done to me based off of the years of abuse and trauma. Like I almost died on my mission. I almost died. I almost took a life. It was that bad where, and I never dealt with it. I never overcame that stuff. And so finally to get the help that I needed and to like let my brain reset, it was like, it was interesting for me to see how dark things could be, and then to see the light. 'Cause I had always had a testimony that I never doubted, and to actually experience and say, like, you need to you're in a hole right now, and you need to dig yourself out. I really had to like start, it was almost like start from scratch. Like I'm gonna hit the reset button and really reevaluate my testimony, my belief system, how I view Him, and it really has changed. It's made that relationship so much more personal. My prayers are different right now. My outlook is different right now. My attitude, I feel so much more at peace with my decisions and with who I am in His eyes. It's been a really, like, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. But man, I'm so grateful that I was given the help so that I could respond in a positive way. So where now I'm learning from that experience, and I have so much more empathy for those that struggle like that. And I just feel like I'm stronger because going through such darkness, you appreciate the light so much more.
Yeah. So I haven't experienced that, but from your understanding, that appeared in your 40s because up to that point, there were difficult circumstances in your life that you hadn't emotionally worked through.
Totally. Yeah.
So before I go through that, save me, Ben.
There'd
What
be
do we do?
allow yourself to be vulnerable. I really would. And having someone to talk to about it and just say, hey, can I just tell you everything that I'm feeling and thinking right now? And allow yourself those moments of have a safe space where you can just unload. Like going to a therapist was one, and I know it's not for everybody. I don't know. There's some downside. My therapist was great. I was very careful on finding her and choosing her. And as soon as she realized I was good, she was like, "Hey, you don't need me anymore."
Get out of
And
here.
that was huge for me to have that. Like it wasn't somebody who was just trying to milk everything and say, "I'm just going to keep you as long as." I knew
Yeah.
there was an end point with her, and for the first time in my life, I literally held nothing back, and I could say everything that was on my mind, what I was feeling, without having, like being in the church, being a church employee, felt like whatever I say to somebody, I knew what the answer was going to be. I knew it, and I didn't want that. I didn't want the cookie cutter answer of, well, have you been reading your scriptures and saying your prayer? I like, can you just let me, like, this is going to sound weird, but like I had a really, like when I was going through this, my language was awful. Like I felt like, and part of that was the anger that I was feeling. So I wanted to go sit down in front of somebody and be able to just say everything and get it out as ugly and as crass as it sounded, and have them just listen and
Yeah.
say, okay, are you done? Like, can we, and not be looking like, are you sure you're supposed to be swearing? Well, if your students knew you were swearing, I didn't want that. I just wanted to, like, can I just get this out? And then
Yeah.
for her to say, now let's trace this back. Let's see, why are you feeling this way? Tell me about this relationship. And she didn't know my past. I could just spew it all out there. So it was really helpful to just be able to talk and cry and be completely stripped of all pride and vanity and let down my guard and just be so real with somebody. Man, it felt good. It was so liberating to do that. And then I go back and I talk to my wife about it. And again, she would help walk me through that and say, she
Yeah.
wasn't trying to intervene as the therapist, but she was just listening and allowing me to explain and would just say, okay, how can I help? And it really, that was like, I claim it as a lifesaver, maybe not in the physical sense, but it allowed me, like my wife used kept saying, like, you're back, like you're
Yeah.
fine. Like, and this is after years, I went through years of the signs were there for years, but we didn't figure it out until it actually exploded. And it was like, you're finally back. This is the fun, carefree band that, I was married to in the beginning. And I was always like, it was always something I was hiding and it was just festering beneath the surface. There were signs of anxiety and withdrawals from like family and certain things, like from her side of the family. I just wasn't allowing myself to just grow because it was just festering and festering and festering. All of a sudden it exploded. And I was okay,
Yeah.
you got to deal with this now.
What was that intentional on
No,
your part?
no, I had no idea what was happening. I really didn't. I was just reacting. I didn't know that that was even going on. I feel like I was searching for something, some sort of connection. It's hard being away from my family. That was really tough. Being part of the Polynesian culture, I was trying to find where do I fit in because my dad is from Tonga, my mom's from England, and it's like you don't really fit in this world, but in the other world, you're just different enough to where you're like there's some sort of my identity I'm trying to connect with. So I went through that whole process of how do I connect, with something, and I was just really trying to. You just kind of feel like I don't know, like you're floating in space and you're trying to cling to something to ground you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't finding it. It was lost. I was just kind of going through the motions of church and spirituality, but I wasn't like solid and firm. I was just dealing with, there were so many emotional things going on in my mind that I couldn't just firmly plant myself on the ground and connect so that I could move forward with some sort of traction and
Yeah.
stability.
So you needed some kind of orienting structure, something to ground you. Did some connection? Did you find that?
I think it was there the entire time. It was, I think, I love talking about identity. And I don't think it was until I really came to understand, like, and have a strong, strong testimony of my identity and the order of all my identifiers. When I say that I am a child of God, that whole process led me to like 100%. That is the number one thing in your life. You are a child of God first. It's like what President Nelson says, you're a child of God, you are a child of covenant, you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. And once I've been saying it for years, I knew it, but all of a sudden it just made sense. It made sense why it's important to have those in the proper order. Husband, father, even culturally identifying with that, but putting it all in the right order. That's what really did it for me, is just having that firm testimony, saying it out loud, but actually believing it, living it, having it make sense, recognizing that so much of the decisions that I need to make in my life have to all go back to those identifiers. And it's made all the difference.
That's what we would call that's like the faith hierarchy. And I love the framework of identity because buddy Travis and I were just talking about this the other day. It's like with the election, the recent election, regardless of who would have won, there would have been meltdowns on either side. Like the world is ending on
For
either
sure.
side. Like one is just exalting and the other was like, oh no, now life is hell, or vice versa, right? And I
Totally.
think that's a result of exactly that. It's you've got your identity wrong. Because people will identify as I'm politically left, I'm politically right, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. And that's like their primary identifier, and that leads to hell very, very quickly. And so it's having that I am a child of God, I am royalty at the very top. So I find that so interesting that because if somebody came to me like you and said, "Hey, I'm struggling with all of these things," I might give them the church answers. I'd say, "Well, are you reading? Are you praying? Are you going to church?" But so how do we help somebody like that?
For some people, that might be it. That really might be the answer. Because if they're not doing those things, that
Yeah,
could help. But I think that there are, and I'm glad the church has come out. I know Elder Holland several years ago gave a talk where he talked about this. Elder Renlin has talked about this. Elder Rasband. Just the idea, it's a real thing, and I think, seeking professional help, whether it's from somebody in the church or without the church, is good. Do your research. I would really encourage somebody to it's like for me, I use this with my physical activities, with working out. I do trial and error a lot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this, and if I like it, I'm going to keep going. And so I think it's just trying out different things. Go to a therapist. Go talk to somebody that you trust. Try reading your scripture, saying your prayers in a different manner. Change something in your life that is off until you kind of hone in and figure it out. And I think that's what I would encourage is just keep trying new things, listen to people that you trust, and allow yourself to be patient with the process. And again, it could be a long time. Luckily for me, I had a buddy that when I first started going through these things, we were just in a normal conversation and we were talking. I was trying to tell him like, "Hey man, I'm really like, this is weird. I think I might be having these panic attacks. I think I might be suffering from some anxiety." And he sat me down and he goes, "Dude," he goes, "I went through the same thing." And I had no idea. And he told
yeah,
me, he said, "It took me 2 years to figure it out." And I was like, whoa. And that it was a little daunting to think I got to go this for 2 years, but it gave me a hope like, okay, it can happen. And if it doesn't happen right away, that's okay. So having somebody that I could trust that could talk me through it and say, "Hey, this is what it was like for me. Maybe this would help." And luckily, I found that person early on in my journey that it really helped me a lot. I kept going back to that. Okay, he said it was going to take 2 years. So be patient with yourself.
yeah.
Allow that process to happen. And man, he was right. He was totally right. And this is somebody that I really like. We became good friends that I admired. I looked up to him. I always thought he had it all together. And I was like, "Dude, you went through this too?" And he's totally fine. It was awesome. It was awesome to see. A huge, huge help for me.
Yeah. Well, I think some people will watch this and think the exact same thing about you. I think as a man, it's like we can't have issues, we can't be vulnerable, we can't cry. But my wife and I, we went to we saw like a therapist early in our marriage, well, a few years ago, and not even for anything major, just wanted to make sure we were okay. But Carla was going through school and she had a lot of anxiety in her grad program, and so it kind of started that, and then she brought me on a couple, and I sat in, and I realized the therapist asked me something that I'd never thought about. She said something like, uh, "When do you feel comfortable being vulnerable with your feelings?" And I sat and thought about that, and the only answer was never. I've literally, like, up to that point in
Wow.
my life, I had literally never ever felt comfortable sharing my feelings. And I've thought a lot about it since then, but I I didn't want to be a burden on my mom, single mom most of the time with 6 boys, right? And so I didn't want to be a problem. So you just stuff everything down. I didn't want to bug my dad because I didn't want to get in trouble. And so you stuff it all down. And so I just didn't share my feelings ever. I didn't want to be a problem. And then in doing so, I also discovered this in therapy is when you push down like even negative emotions, you can't just suppress one. It suppresses all of your emotions.
Wow.
And I'd done that for like 25 years. So later, coming to the end of that, I just like, I would have feelings that I didn't know what they were. I would have to, like, several days later, after thinking about it, I could say, "Oh, I was feeling mad, and here's why." But I felt dumb because I just could not, I knew there was a feeling. I didn't know what it was, and I don't know why I had that feeling. And so over the years, I've had to slowly build those synapses again to understand, oh, that's sadness, that's anger, that's whatever. And so I've gotten much better. Like now, I think I'm more normal where I feel something and I can understand why and what
Yeah.
happened and what that feeling is. But so I would double down with you on that. I think that sometimes we need help. And sometimes we need a hand to guide us. It's good to have community, a buddy who's gone through some things with you. So, man, it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. And sometimes we just need to let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on to kind of more present times, what is your mission, Ben? What's the sword that you would fall on?
My mission, I love that question because it's become so much more clear to me now than ever. My mission is his mission. Like I fully have embraced this idea of I'm trying to be a gatherer. I'm trying to light the world with his goodness. And as a religious educator, that's something that I'm constantly, that's just I do all the time. So there was a point in my life. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've I've come to finally realize that in any arena, I can do this. And so if that means moving on to another opportunity, if it presents itself, then I can do that as long as my focus is the same. And I really try to make every interaction with somebody count. I just I hope, in addition to you said you hope when somebody walks into your house, they feel Jesus. And I hope that any interaction I have with somebody is the same way. That, and there's some things cooking right now that could be really big that could give me an opportunity to really let that out and make some really important connections. And so I think for me, I'm trying to keep that mentality. Regardless of the situation or the setting, am I really going to? It's easy to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and represent Him when you're standing in front of a classroom full of college kids who are there specifically to learn about Jesus Christ.
There's the expectation.
That's right. It's a whole nother thing when you're thrown into an environment that's not like that. It's not used to it. And I feel like my life has led me to this point where it's like I've earned and gained his trust, to where it's like I can pluck you from this environment and put you in this environment. And you're going to thrive, and you're still going to do the same work you're doing here. You're still going to light the world. You're still going to gather Israel and help me do my mission. Help me bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of all men, and just spread the light. I really feel like I finally have gotten to that point where I'm okay with doing that in any setting.
I'm jealous. I've been thinking a lot about this as well. I love the way you phrased it. My mission is his mission. Because I've been thinking about like what I ask people this all the time. So what is my mission? And I was in the temple the other day and I was just thinking about that. What is my mission? And I opened the scriptures, just happened to fall open to our buddy Ammon, who is a missionary. And for
I
those
know
of you
that
who
guy. I like him.
you know him, we love Ammon. Yeah. Oh yeah. So quick side note. Ben actually played King Lamoni in the Book of Mormon story in the videos. I got that right, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you literally know Ammon. So Ammon goes to go preach to this ferocious people, and Ben is King Lamoni, who is the king of these ferocious people. And he shows up, and Ammon says, "Hey, Ben, I want to be a servant to you." And so he sends him out to tend the flocks. And so this is what I was reading. I was like, how does this even apply? And then the Lamanites, so some robbers come up and they kind of scatter the sheep, and then Ammon gets his buddies to go gather them. And then the robbers come back, and they're gonna kill him. And so Ammon says, "I got this," and he murders these guys. So he tosses stones at them, chops off arms, and he kills the leader of the group. And it was like at that moment I realized it's like my mission is to gather and defend the flocks of the king. Like you though, I don't think I'm quite as far developed because I don't know how to do that in various settings. I'm trying to figure it out. So if you get moved to a new setting, if your wildest dreams come true, Ben, and you go off to some magical land and do whatever you're going to do, how are you going to maintain that mission? Like, because the other gods are going to demand that you worship them. Other things will
Yeah,
try to prioritize themselves over your
for
faith. How are you
sure.
going to maintain that?
So my wife and I were just talking about that, and I think intentionally it's not a secret. There's not some magical formula that's hidden from everybody. I really do believe that it is by maintaining the right focus and doing those small, simple things that matter. Living and truly understanding your identity at all times, and then keeping yourself on that path and just and never losing focus. I talk a lot about discipline, and every single year I do something out on the new year to discipline myself, to practice it. I'll go without something, or I'll do something. This year I'm reading the Book of Mormon every single day. Last year I went without ice cream. Year before,
The whole
cereal, peanut.
year?
The whole year, yeah,
That's
peanut
like
M&Ms.
Mormon alcohol.
There you go, man.
Good
So
job.
I try to do something to be disciplined. I think it's the same principles apply. Is whatever setting I'm in, I have to be doing those same things. And exercising, I think it's the kindness, like practicing it every single day. We focus so much on, yeah, read the scripture, say your prayers, go to the temple. But what about the action of when you're out and about, actually looking at the way that Christ interacted with people? Whether, you talked about identity. Do I, as I identify myself as a son or daughter of God, am I really legitimately viewing people who totally disagree with me on something, whether it's religiously, politically? Am I willing to view them as their identity, as a son or daughter of God? And if I can take that interaction into another arena and really, really view that person as a son and daughter of God, that's the challenge. That's how you do it, is treating them as God would treat them, and seeing them as God would see them, and really living that. And I think you just have to practice that on a regular basis, whether you're on the freeway and somebody cuts you off, you're on the basketball court, on the mat, and someone hits you in the nose. Are you still going to practice those same principles of Christianity that have gotten you this far? Are you going to do that always? I love that phrase, we haven't come this far just to come this far. It's like whatever has led me up to this point in my life, this is not the end. And am I able to continue that and practice those same principles, whatever setting I'm thrown into?
Well, yeah, I think you just answered my prayer, actually, Ben. I've been thinking about that for a long time and haven't come up with a solution, because it's like, especially in a work setting, because I don't work at Institute and most of us don't. And so you know how it is. You can't bring things. It's hard to bring Jesus into the workplace. And when I
Yeah,
do, I get chastised.
right.
And so I've had to lay off on that for a long time. But how do I still be a light in that scenario? And I think that's right. You just treat people how Jesus would treat Seligman. I really like The Chosen. Have you watched The Chosen?
Bro, many times.
It's beautiful. It's so good. But when I think of Jesus, I I often think of him because he's just like he's fun and personable, and he interacts with people and he smiles, and that's what I want to be like. He's just a light. When he's in a room, he's the light of that room. And when I walk into a room, I want to be a light in the way that I treat other people, and I want to make them feel important and special. And I often don't. That's really hard for me to do. Maybe that's just the introvert, or I haven't practiced it enough. You are really good at it, by the way. I would say like that. That's one of the first things I noticed about you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that you said, like, if you look at my office, I've got several pictures of that Jesus.
Do you?
Yeah, that's the one, because I agree. I think it's super accurate of how you really did interact, and don't sell yourself short, man. Like, you've got it. There's a reason why I think you and I were drawn to each other those early days, when we were training, is that there's just this sense of goodness that I felt for sure. Even when you're wrong, like, there's, and in that environment, it's easy to be a jerk and to be
Yeah.
aggressive, but to still exercise kindness, and you can laugh at things. So, yeah, don't. I would imagine you're a lot further along than you think you are, and just try to really truly recognize, like, when we say, what would Jesus do? I don't know if we really know all the time what he would do.
Yeah.
We throw that phrase around a lot, but I think that we'd be surprised at the amount of patience and kindness that he shows people that we would even consider hostile towards us. But he is so good at really kind of like putting out fires and connecting with people, and diffusing situations because of the love and the kindness that he has.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Ben. So we'll wrap up here, and I'll get you out of here. But one of the last questions here, what is the monument you want to build with your life?
And on it really does come down to him. I hope that when when it's all said and done, um, I want to do him proud. I want that common phrase, well done, thou good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
That's what I want, man. I really, I don't want a wasted life. And I can say that recognizing all my flaws. I know I'm not perfect. I know I have so much work to do. But I want that return. I want my legacy to be, being around him made me want to be a better person, or being around him made me smile. And it's hard. When I first got called as a bishop, my stake president, he told me, he said, if everybody in your ward likes you, you're doing something wrong. And I'm like, man, I want everybody to like, like I don't want to have like it was a kind of a gut check for me. I
Yeah.
understand what he's saying, but at the same time, it's hard because I do want to have positive interactions with people wherever I go. And that's I really hope I'm building that that when people are trying to elevate their own life, based off of any interaction, how big or small that they have with me. And I hope I can do that with love and humility, without any ego. And I want to be very genuine.
But Ben, I wish that you were like 15, 20 years younger and we went to high school together. I think we would have had so much fun.
Oh man, we would have been so tired.
But it's been like it's really been fun getting to know you. I really think that you are a light and you have been, and so keep it up, man. I'm so excited to see where your journey takes you. It's we're gonna put a pin in you and just follow you wherever you go. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, thank you, Christian, man. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and sitting and talking with you. I feel like we're just scratching the surface of
Yeah.
this potential conversation. It's been so just uplifting to talk with you.
Yeah.
So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. If people just can't get enough of you, Ben, how can they find you and get more?
Oh, that's tough, man. I'm on Instagram, just at Ben_Lomu. I'm not a big social media guy, but you're welcome to follow me. You can come follow up on BYU
Yeah.
TV or on the BYU TV app. And then, I'm in movies and I do certain things here and there. But I honestly, dude, I try not to be a self promoter. I try to stay low key. If you see me at Costco or something, just say hi. I would love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, hunt for Ben in Costco. That's our new mission. All right. Well, thank you, Ben. For those of you guys listening, thank you, Ben Lomu. Stay in the fight. Let's get after it.
Thanks for joining this episode of The Holy Rebellion. We'll see you next week.